Now we'll be dealing with the first property of a living cell, which is nutrition. And nutrition is the way the cell gets food to perform its other functions. The cell needs food to be able to survive, it needs food to produce energy, and it needs food to grow. And so many other things. In fact, all the functions of a cell are embedded in its ability to get food. If the cell doesn't get food, every other ability cannot be performed. In fact, the cell is as good as dead after a long period of starvation. So let us go to the ways cells get their food. And we're talking about the unicellular organisms first. The first one is phagocytosis. Now, phagocytosis is the way a cell engulfs its food. Single-celled organisms mostly live in liquid medium, and in this liquid medium, there are food all around them, mostly in forms of simple substances, like something like bacteria and so on. For example, in an organism like the amoeba, what happens is that it extends its cell membrane and engulfs the food, more like extends its pseudopodia to cover the food. So the food is within that extension, and by the time it retracts into itself, it becomes what is known as a food vacuole. As it's a food vacuole, enzymes are released that digest this microorganism, let me say bacteria, and extracts the nutrients, which diffuses into all parts of the cell. So that is phagocytosis. And secondly, we have some other single cellular organisms which get their food by creating a current in water. An example is the paramecium, which uses its cilia to create a current around the water that directs food into a gullet, which is a mouth-like structure within it. And this, when it gets this in, it can also digest it and get its food out of it. Then the third one is cellular diffusion, which occurs in higher organisms. Like I said, we are all made of cells. Now, after we've eaten and the food has gone down, our cell can absorb this food through the membrane. The cell of our body absorbs this food through its membrane, through specific structures in its membrane that can allow this particular food like glucose, amino acids, fats and oil and minerals to be absorbed into its system, and it uses this to run its activities. And that is that with cellular nutrition. Next, we'll be talking about cellular respiration. We've discussed cellular nutrition, which is how the cell gets its nutrients. After this nutrient has been digested, for it to be used by the cell, there has to be a process called respiration. Now, what is respiration? Cellular respiration is the process by which food is broken down to release energy to perform other functions of the cell. Now, without respiration, the digested food substances are useless to the cell because they'll just be there. Now, there are two ways cells respire. There's anaerobic respiration, which is respiration without the use of oxygen, and there's aerobic respiration, which is the respiration with the use of oxygen. And the difference between these two is that anaerobic respiration produces less amount of energy but saves time, whereas aerobic respiration produces a high amount of energy but takes more time and resources. So we're dealing with anaerobic respiration. Anaerobic respiration has one process, and it is called glycolysis. Now, in glycolysis, glucose is first phosphorylated before it passes through a series of reactions, and finally it is converted to a 3-carbon acid known as pyruvic acid. Now, this pyruvic acid is now further reacted upon to form a 2-carbon substance. Most times it forms alcohol, which we call alcoholic fermentation, and at other times, especially in higher organisms, it forms lactic acid. And that is why you get tired after you've run for a long while, because the accumulation of lactic acid causes that feeling of tiredness. And that is that for anaerobic respiration. In aerobic respiration, the first process is also glycolysis. But after glycolysis, the pyruvic acid now enters into a structure known as the mitochondria. We've discussed that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. Some cells don't have mitochondria, especially the prokaryotic cell, but the eukaryotic cell have mitochondria. Now, this mitochondria is structured in such a way that it enables the generation of more energy for the cell. It is a cyclic reaction, and at the end of the day, it generates at least 36 ATP added to the 2 ATP generated from glycogen. And that reminds me, the energy currency of the cell is known as ATP. And ATP is the acronym for adenosine triphosphate. Adenosine triphosphate. So these processes are what enables the cell to release energy. This energy does so many things and powers so many other reactions. So next, we will be moving to excretion.